We learned about vegetative propagation, how vegetative propagation can occur naturally and how it can occur artificially also, right? We did learn about some of the special cases of asexual reproduction, like we had the case of budding. Okay, now we had the case of the budding in the yeast, right? Yeast, although we were learning about it, but yeast is not an example of a plant. But many times we confuse it with plants, so thereby we learned about this. We learned about this important organism that is a animal-like organism. This is a microscopic multicellular animal which also reproduces by the process of budding. As we can see here, a small outgrowth develops from one part of the body and it eventually detaches from the parent plant. That's how it does reproduction. Further, we learned about fragmentation. We have one example of alga. Is alga a plant or not? Do we consider this as a plant? All of you turn your
So
cameras on in the
alga,
class. Just Gauss, continue. You were saying something?
so I think it's a plant.
It is a plant. Okay, now why? Because it contains green pigment that is chlorophyll. It is photosynthetic in nature, right now. Priyanka, Gauss, and Abubakar, all three of you turn your cameras on in the class.
Okay, sir.
It is instructed from the Learnivio also that everyone turns the camera on in the class to have a proper interaction. Okay, it's better. Otherwise, I feel like yes, I'm talking to this camera and the students are not there. So we learned about fragmentation also. In this, basically what happens, you guys also turn your cameras on. So what we learned about in this, now, the organism would be simply splitting into different parts and each part will grow separately. So that was the case of fragmentation. We learned about the spore formation also. Particularly plants like fern and mosses, they have spores in them. Like you can see, this is a moss and this is a spore here. And mosses, this spore can survive in the adverse, it can survive in the unfavorable environmental conditions also. Even if the temperature were to be too high or the humidity is too high, so it can survive for a long duration of time. So once it gets the adequate amount of nutrition, adequate favorable condition, then it will start to grow. Further, our discussion is started with the sexual reproduction in the plants. In this, we learned that the flowers are the reproductive organs that participates in sexual reproduction. Further, the flowers we have learned, it will be divided into two parts, right? One of part will be the stamen that forms the male reproductive part, and the another one is the pistil. In some book, it is also written as carpel. So that makes the female reproductive part. Getting it? Further, I told you guys one important thing that flowers can be of two types. Some flowers can have both the male and female part. They can have both stamen and pistil, so they will be called as bisexual flower. Why? Because they have both the gender. Then we have the flowers that will either have the stamen, that is the male reproductive part, or will either have the pistil, that is the female reproductive part. So they will be called as the unisexual flower. And below are some examples of the unisexual flower, like the cucumber flower, coconut flower, papaya flower. Getting it now? So that is the case. Okay. They were called the unisexual flower. In the case of stamen, we learned about the structure of the stamen. What are the two important parts of the stamen?
Sir, anther and filament.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Abu Bakr, you also turn your camera on in the class. And if there's some network issue with you, you can just write down the answers in the chat box. Okay. Also, you guys can just raise your hand in the class. There's an option to raise your hand. Like when you will see this option react, you can see the option react here. From there, you can raise your hand. Okay, no? Okay. Furthermore, we learned about that this anther contains the pollen grain inside it. The pollen grain that you guys can see here. And the pollen grain contains the male gamete, basically the male sex cell. Got this now? You can relate it with this in this context that in the case of the human body, in the case of a male organism, they also produces the male gamete, that is the sperm, which is produced by the testis in them. The male reproductive organ, that is testis, it produces sperm. Sperm is basically the sex cell in the case of humans. In the case of the plant, the sex cells, that is the male gamete, it is present inside the pollen grain. Hope this much should be clear to everyone. Further, we did also learn about the stigma. We're learning about, in the case of pistil, we learned that it is divided into three main parts. That is the three main parts of the female reproductive organ is, what is it?
Sir,
Sir.
stigma, style, and ovary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, female reproductive organ. That is stigma, style, and ovary. We learned about the stigma, that it's the swollen sticky structure that receives the pollen grain. Okay. Further, we learned about the style. It's the tube-like structure that will be connecting the stigma to the ovary. And later on, we will learn that the pollen tube will be forming in this, which will allow the pollen grains to travel from the stigma to the ovary. In the case of ovary, we learned that it contains the eggs in which the female sex cells are formed. Okay, we also learned that ovule is also present within the ovary that later on develops into the fruit after fertilizing into the seed, I mean to say. So once the flower will be fertilized, what we see that I gave the example of the common example, mango, for example. The fleshy part that you see in the mango, that is the ovary. Getting it? And the seed, that was once the ovule. We learned about pollination. There are two types of pollination. As you guys can see here, this is autogamy or the self-pollination. Observe the animation and you guys tell me, what do you see in this? Where is the pollen grain from the anther going to?
Sir, to stigma.
Sir, to the stigma.
To the stigma, and it is going to the stigma of the same flower. So thereby it is self-pollination, and also known by the another term called autogamy. Okay, now autogamy. So we learned about this. Then we learned about the cross pollination also. That is the xenogamy. So thereby look at this animation and observe what is happening here. So pollen grains are, via the wind, it is being carried to the stigma of the same. Oh, okay, guys, no issue. Okay. Got this? You guys can observe here. So the flowers are on two different plants, but of the same species, right? Are the flowers on the same plant? Look at the whole animation. No.
No.
What is the another name used for cross pollination?
Allogamy.
Allogamy. Okay, now. So keep these important facts in the mind. Further, what do we see here? We are looking at different agents of pollination. Right now, the first one. Can you guys tell me what is this first one? It's very common. In fact, I saw this yesterday in my hometown. The first one here. That's the. Can anyone tell me what this is? You guys know about orchid? How many of you know about orchid flower? Yeah. I guess this is orchid, I think, if I'm not wrong. Anyone knows what is the name of this?
No, sir.
I think maybe orchid or something. We'll have to look into it. I will tell you about this.
Sir,
Okay.
what about dandelions?
Dandelions, no?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
I'm not
Actually,
sure, sir.
I was also not sure of dandelion. That's why I not used that word. Maybe this could be dandelion flower. Okay, no? Okay, I think it is dandelion. I think this is dandelion. Yeah, Priyanka, I think this is dandelion actually. Okay, now nonetheless, the point of this is that basically the wind is helping in pollination here. The wind is actually helping in pollination here. What is happening? The anther is moving from this flower and it will sit on the stigma of another flower, and then pollination will take place. Here, which bird is this? The world's smallest bird, that is
King.
hummingbird. No,
Hummingbird.
right? So that also helps in pollination. And here you have your butterfly, that also helps in pollination, right? Water also helps in pollination. Huh? So water, air, insects, all these are the agents of pollination. So hope this should be clear to everyone. So wind will be like pollinating agent. When we talk about pollinating agent, we can classify it into two categories. Pollination agents. So we can classify them into two manner. Like one of them will be the abiotic agent. Abiotic, you guys understand what does the term abiotic mean? Something that is not live, that is not alive. Okay, now.
Okay, sir.
So in this, you'll be basically having the example of water and air. Water and air, basically wind. And 1 minute. In the case of the biotic agent, we'll be having the examples of birds, be having insects, plus bats also do help in the process of pollination. Got this now? So hope this much is clear to everyone so far. Okay. You can take there's a long list of animals. In fact, ants also help in some way in pollination. Ants will also be the example of this. Snails can also be taken example. Bees, moth, etc. Further, today our discussion will mainly be rotating around the concept of fertilization in the flowers, how fertilization takes place. Early in the previous class, I have told you once pollination have taken place, once the pollen grain will reach the stigma, so it will form a tube-like structure. So it will create a pathway for the pollen grain to travel inside the ovary. And inside the ovary, you have the female egg cell, that is the ovum. So once the pollen grain will go there, what does the pollen grain contain? It contains the male sex cell. Ovum is the female sex cell. So both of them will be fusing, both of them will be mixing, and hence zygote will be formed after fertilization has taken place. Is that clear to everyone what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
And take a look at this animation also. This is a little bit blurry, but I guess you guys can understand what is happening here. See. Now start looking from here. You can see a tube-like structure is forming. And can you see the orange dot here? The orange dot, is it
Yes,
visible?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Okay. No? So that is the pollen traveling in the pollen tube. That is the pollen grain traveling in the pollen tube, and it is going to the ovary where it will be fertilizing the ovum. So that is the way how fertilization takes place here. Okay. No? Further look here. So here you have, for example, a flower is this is the flowering plant. The ovary, it contains the ovule in this. Once the fertilization takes place, it develops into a fruit. Now the fleshy part is the ovary and the seed is the ovule. Right now, further the seed, once it will be germinating, seedling will be formed from it, and the seedling will further develop into the flowering plant again. So that is the way how the cycle continues. That is the way how cycle continues. So hope this much should be clear to everyone so far. If there's any questions in this so far, please let me know. Boss, is it clear to you how the process of reproduction took place?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have few questions from you guys. Do tell me, once the ovum and the pollen grain have fused, what is the name of the cell that is formed?
So zygote.
Everyone, same or different answer?
Same, sir.
Same? Good. What is the pollen tube, by the way?
Sir,
It is a
it's like a pathway.
yes, sir. Like a tube.
Like a tube-like structure in which the
Yeah.
pollen grain will be traveling, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to write some of the important points here. Okay. So due to the
Sir, may I go to the washroom?
okay. So due to the fusion of male and female sex cells, or basically the gametes, zygote is formed here. Zygote is formed. And this process of the formation of zygote is being called as fertilization. So this process is called fertilization. It's called fertilization. Furthermore, once the zygote will have been formed, the zygote is not going to turn into an embryo. Now the zygote, what happens? The zygote, after fertilization of the flower has taken place, will convert into the embryo. Getting it? So that is the thing which basically happens here. The zygote later on will convert into the embryo. You guys can take a look at this one over here. The seed here, it contains the embryo inside it. So after fertilization, the zygote in the flower, it will develop into an embryo. About the fertilization, as I was telling you moments ago, in the case of fertilization, what happens? As the pollen grain will sit on the stigma, and as the pollen tube develops, via the pollen tube, the pollen grain will travel inside the ovary. So once it has traveled inside the ovary, so thereby the male and the female gametes will fuse together. It will fuse together. So basically what happens here, the ovum will be basically fusing with the male gametes, male sex cell, that is the ovum will be fusing with the male sex cell that is present in the pollen grain, and as a result zygote is formed. So zygote will further repeatedly, it will divide further to form embryo. Let me write down. Zygote further develops into embryo. Further develops into embryo. That is one thing. Also, we see that the ovule, as we have learned in the previous classes, the ovule that is present inside the ovary, it later on forms into the seed. So once the fertilization process has taken place, the ovule present inside the ovary, it is going to convert into the seed, and the ovary will develop into the fruit, which is the thick layer. The thick layer, the thick fleshy layer inside the fruit that you see, which is edible, that was once the ovary. That is one thing. Now also you will see that once the fertilization would have taken place, the different parts of the flower, like the colorful parts of the flower, like the petals, sepals, and the stamens, all of it will fall off after fertilization. Getting it what I'm trying to say? Yes, boss. So another important thing which I have said here, that zygote further develops into embryo, that is correct. Further we learn that ovule turns into seed. And what about ovary? Yes, Priyanka?
Sir?
What about the ovary? Ovary turns into?
Sir, like,
It turns into the thick, fleshy, edible layer now. Yes?
sir.
That is the case here. Okay, now. Furthermore, we see that the different parts of the flower, like petals, do they remain attached? Once it was a flower, once the fertilization has taken place, once it has converted into a fruit, do you see the petals still attached to the fruit?
Sir, I didn't understand.
My question is, na, like take a look at this flower, for example. Take, for example, this. This is a cucumber flower, and this flower after fertilization will turn into cucumber, right? Okay, so when the cucumber has developed, do we see these petals? These are the petals now, as you guys would be aware, the colorful part of the flower, colorful leafy like structure. Are they still attached or do they fall off?
So they fall off.
They fall off now, or when we
They
see
are-
the, exactly, when we see the papaya, there are no petals in this. And
Yes,
are
sir.
the stamens also attached or do they also fall off? The stamen, like
Sir,
look at this one.
nothing.
So what are we saying, that stamen also falls off. Once the fruit will be formed, petals and stamens and the sepals also, petals, sepals and stamens, all of them will be falling off. That is one thing which happens. Okay, now so petals, sepals, and stamens falls off after fertilization has taken place and after the fruit will be formed. So another important thing to be noted down here is that after the fruit formation, sepals, petals, and stamens fall off, and it falls off. But what about the pistil? Pistil, it still remains attached to the plant. Once it was the pistil, now it has converted into the fruit. This central structure, it basically converted into the fruit, isn't it? You can take a very good example of the pomegranate. When you look at the pomegranate now, when you look at the upper portion of the pomegranate, for example, like this, try to understand. Um, Hope you guys can understand this. Like looks like a pomegranate, right? So once
Yes,
this was, once it was a flower, so the petals that were there, it fell off now. Petals also fell off. You guys see the sepals here? Can you guys see the sepals here?
yes, sir.
Let me highlight this thing over here. These are the sepals. Are the sepals attached to it, or do they also fall off? The sepals also fall off now, right? Furthermore, in the flower of a pomegranate fruit, now you will find that in the flower of the pomegranate plant, stamens are also present. Are the stamens also attached to it, or do they also fall off? They also fall off now. Getting
Yes,
it
sir.
now? That is one thing. Furthermore, this is furthermore talking about the pistil. Pistil remains, but not in its original form. Now the pistil, basically pistil, what does it contain? It contains the ovary, stigma, style. Basically, the ovary of the pistil has converted into the fruit. The whole
Sir, what about
swollen structure.
eggplant?
What about the
Eggplant.
eggplant?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
in that the sepals are still attached, I would say. In that, the sepals are still attached. Other things follow, but the sepals are still attached. You will see that in
Oh,
the case of the eggplant, no? Like this, the sepals would be still attached. Getting it now?
yes.
Mm-hmm. But usually in most of them sepals will be falling off. Okay. So hope this much should be clear to everyone. If anyone happens to have any doubt, please let me know. Furthermore, let me just revise whatever we have read. I told you guys that after the fertilization, the ovary of the flower grows and develops into the fruit. The ovary is going to grow and develop into the fruit. Remaining part will fall off. Ovule will be developing and it will convert into the seed. As I said, it turns into the seed. Hmm. But the embryo that we see here, as you guys can see this image, the embryo, it is enclosed inside the seed. The embryo is enclosed inside the seed. Also, we see that some fruits are fleshy and juicy like mango, like apple and oranges, while some of the fruit can be hard like almond and walnut. Like almond and walnut. That is one thing. Another important concept to be discussed is the seed dispersal. Seed dispersal. So basically, the transportation of the seeds from the parent plant to different places is called as seed dispersal. The transportation of seed from the parent plant to the different places is called as seed dispersal. Okay, now. So seed dispersal will allow the growth of the same kind of plant in that given region. Getting my point? What I'm trying to say. So, say for example, there's a fruit that is hanging onto a plant. If you were not to pluck it, if you were not to cut it from the plant, so eventually after some time, what will happen? That fruit is going to fall off, and the seeds, when it will come out of the fruit, it is going to be it is from that seed a new plant is going to grow. So basically, the transportation of the seed from the parent plant to the different places, it will be called as seed dispersal. The transportation of seed from the parent plant to the different place is called seed dispersal. Seed dispersal. And seed dispersal is very helpful. It will be minimizing the competition for the food, competition for the water and sunlight among the plants of the same kind in that given area, and also allows the plants to grow in different habitat. Okay, na? So for example, wind will be helping in the dispersal of the seed, water will be helping in the dispersal of the seed. Particularly the coconut seed is transported from one part to another via the water. Like for example, particularly in the oceans, there are lots of, in the island for example, lots of coconut trees are there. You see that there are two islands, this and this. In an ocean there are two islands. Getting it? So say if what happens, this has no vegetation, there are no plants in this, and this has some coconut trees in it. Getting it, guys? There are some coconut trees. So when the coconut will be falling on here, the water will carry it from here to this to another island. So seed dispersal is taking place by the action of water, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So seed is transported from this parent plant to the different place, and here water is helping in the dispersal of the seed. Okay, that is how is it helpful now? Now it actually minimizes the competition on this island. How? Suppose that if this seed were to fall on this place, a new coconut plant is going to grow here, isn't it? So say a new coconut plant has grown here like this. Now when the branches of this coconut plant are going to grow, will it not block the sunlight for the other plants? Yes, Gauss, Priyanka and Abubakar.
Yes, sir.
It will block it. Further, it will be taking up the water, taking up the nutrients from the soil also, right? So it minimizes the competition for the food, for the sunlight, and for the water and for the minerals. That is how seed dispersal is important. Further, another thing is that it is allowing the same plant to grow on a different habitat. Like this is a island B, for example. This is island A. Island B could have a different habitat. It could have a different habitat. So seed dispersal will allow the coconut plant to grow on a different habitat also. So these are the important things about this. Let me write down the important points here. So it allows the growth of the same kind of plants in different region. Next, we learned that it minimizes the competition. Minimizes the competition for which factors? For which elements? Yes.
Sir, for sunlight, water, minerals.
Very good. So it minimizes the competition for food, sunlight, water, minerals, etc. Next, we are going to learn how the seed dispersal occurs. How seed dispersal takes place. In this, we are going to learn about different kind of plants. Like we'd be learning about the drumstick, we'd be learning about the maple flower, we'll be learning about coconut, we'll be learning about xanthium, etc. So take for example, take the agent of the dispersal here. For example, take the distributing factor, distribution factor. Talking about the wind, so wind will the wind be able to carry the heavy seeds like coconut seed? Yeah?
No.
No, right now? So like wind will be able to carry the seeds which are not very heavy. For example, the drumstick. This one. Okay, let me take this one. You can take the maple seed. Take this one. So this is a winged seed. See how this looks like? Huh? Looks like it has a wing. Okay, no? Or we can take the example of the like hairy seeds of like arc. This one here. See, this is how this is hairy seeds. So wind will be easily able to carry it from one place to another. Or take the case of the sunflower seeds also. So these are the types of seeds that will be distributed by the wind. And take the example of the coconut. So coconut will be dispersed by the water. Or take example of some animals. So some animals would be helping in the dispersal of seeds, like for example, xanthium. Okay, no? Take the case of the xanthium. Have a look at this. Many of you would have seen this. Ever seen this kind of seed? Yes, that is xanthium. One more thing I wanted to show, that many times we will see that the seeds of some plants should be bursting. Like particularly if we were to look at the balsam seed. Okay. So here the first distribution factor which we have learned is the wind. The first, this one here is the maple seed. Maple seed, and it is very lightweight. Okay, no? Also, this is the winged seed. Because of its wing-like structure, this is called as winged seed as well. The first image that you see here, this is the arc or the hairy seeds. So since they are very lightweight, they can be carried by the wind. Next, you are seeing here is xanthium. So xanthium have a spine-like structure. There are thorns on it, right now. So the spiny seeds, they are the spiny seeds. So spiny seeds, how they will be spread from one place to another? Like this is obviously this is heavy. This is not very lightweight. Like in comparison to arc or the maple seed, it will be heavy. Further, so it will not be easy to be dispersed by the action of wind. By the action of water also it is not dispersed. So it is dispersed by the action of certain animals. So what happens? This being a this being a spiny seed, it will be attached to the fur of the animals. It will get attached to the body of animals, and in that manner, it will be transported from one place to another. Is that thing clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
In the case of water, we had the example of the coconut, which we learned. Now take the example of this one here. This one is very special. How is it special? Basically, the fruit of this plant now, like this is the balsam plant. What is plant is this? This is the balsam plant. So in this, what happens? The fruit of the balsam plant will be simply bursting. It will simply burst. It will simply explode. And due to the explosion of the fruit of this one now, the seeds will be dispersed. Seeds will be spread. Got this, everyone? That is the fruit burst. So here we have learned about the dispersal of the seeds. If any questions, please let me know.
No, sir.
Okay, no? Okay, then we can do some questions now. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So the questions that you guys see here, all of you can answer it separately in the chat box, and also turn your cameras on in the class. All of you. Abubakar, make sure to answer on the correct ID. Okay. Well done, Gauss. All your answers are correct. Okay. So let me do one thing. I'm going to send the screenshot of the next questions in your chat box. Okay, now in the chat box, I'm going to share it. Meanwhile, others continue with this. So I have now put the screenshot of the next questions. Okay. First, you can continue to answer it. Uh, yeah, now you can download it. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Is Priyanka and Abubakar? I'm waiting. Okay, good. Abubakar, you haven't been responding. You there in the class or no?
Yes, sir, I'm there. I'm doing.
Okay, okay. Yes, Priyanka, your second answer is also correct. Very good. You guys do it. I will have to fill my cup with water. I will be back in a minute, okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes, I'm back. Yes,
Sir,
Priyanka.
can you switch the slides, not letting me see at the same time?
Okay, okay. So for others, I'm going to put the screenshot of this one in the chat box for those who have not answered it yet. Okay. Yes. Okay, it was sent only to you. Okay, 1 minute. To Question number 3. Don't answer that one. You'll be answering that in the class. There'll be a verbal answer for that third question. Okay, na?
Okay, sir.
Uh,
For this one, sir?
the
Answer
last
the-
one actually. This one here. Explain the following term. This one. Okay, na?
Okay,
Numbering
sir.
of the question is not actually correct here. So, numbering of the question is actually, I think, no, actually it is correct. Like this should be not taken here. 1, 2, 3. A and B are the part of question number 3, 4, 5. And this should be here. It is wrong. This should be question number 6 here. You guys are not done with the first one still. The first slide. Priyanka and Abu Bakr. You can look at the questions from the chat box. I have shared the screenshot. But just tell me if you guys are having doubt in this. Priyanka, what happened?
I'm doing.
Okay, you're doing. For the third one, what you have answered? It is? Yeah, very good. That is correct. And was you have answered? Yeah. For the first one, you have answered. These are the vegetative parts of flowering plant. Very good. There's one more. Like there's one more now. Bryophyllum. So leaf can also be it. Okay. Leaf is also. Yes, that's the reproductive part. For the fifth one, Priyanka, you have answered. No, that is incorrect. Here you have answered. For the fifth one, your answer is not correct. Priyanka, revisit this one. And goes for the third one, you have answered. Now, for the third question, Gauss, see the question is name the organs of plant body which help in sexual reproduction and which help in vegetative propagation. For
Yes, sir.
sexual,
Yes, sir. I'm answering the vegetative propagation.
okay. And for the sexual reproduction also, it is okay. You have written it together. Okay. Good. Then answer the next one. List the modes of asexual reproduction. Priyanka and Abu Bakr, what's the update?
Sir?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the fifth one.
Okay. Abu Bakr, what about you? Okay, let me help you with this one. For the first one, as you guys have answered, flower. So your answers are correct for the first one. For the second one, the process by which yeast multiplies. So many of you have answered budding. That is correct. Spirogyria reproduction by fragmentation is common in the Spirogyra. Asexual reproduction involves only one parent. It's a spatial structure bearing spores which help in asexual reproduction. Okay, Abu Bakr, you're also answering. You have answered flower, then budding, then one year. That is correct. Let me show this structure to you guys here. You'd be able to recall this. See this bulb-like structure that you see here? That is called as sporangium. In fact, you can see it over here. This is exploding and releasing the spores. So spores are contained in the sporangium. They are contained in the sporangium. Getting it now? So thereby the answer to this question would be, what happened here? Oh, that is a sporangium, okay. And here what you have answered, for the fourth one you have answered is the mode of asexual reproduction, okay, budding, tissue culture. Okay, there are so many other examples of asexual reproduction also, was you can add them too. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes, you guys also do this quickly. Okay, let's do one thing.
Sir, fifth one, I'm not sure, sir.
For fifth one,
Yes, sir.
yeah, question is, can plants be multiplied artificially with help of vegetative propagation? What we have learned about vegetative propagation? Yes, Abubakar and Priyanka, there are two types of vegetative propagation. One which is occurring naturally, in which there is no human intervention, and one which is occurring due to the human intervention. Now, that is artificial
Yes, sir.
vegetative propagation. In fact, we learned about this. Remember, grafting, cutting, all that,
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
tissue culture. Remember, so we had an entire section on the artificial vegetative propagation. If we can recall, see, these are the different artificial vegetative propagation: cutting, layering, grafting, tissue culture. So we did learn about these things. Okay, so yes, it is actually possible. Okay, you guys are taking too much of time, particularly you guys. So for the others, you have answer for question number 6. You guys do one thing. Priyanka, you will be explaining budding. Gauss, you will be explaining fragmentation, and Abu Bakr will be explaining about spore formation. Okay, Fizan, leave this one. Yes, let's start from you, Priyanka. Explain
Okay, sir.
budding. Mhm.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, it is an about east.
Don't take the example first. First, define what budding is. Then you can give the example too. Okay.
Sir, a new cell.
Mhm. First of all, keep the fundamental thing in mind. While you are defining budding, it's a type of reproduction. But is it a sexual or asexual reproduction?
Sir, budding is an has sexual.
Asexual.
Yes.
Asexual. Okay, no? So
Okay,
first
sir.
of all, you're going to say that budding is a type of asexual reproduction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the first part of your definition is budding is a type of asexual reproduction. Okay, further, what we know that
In which a new organism
develops from a
develops from a bud
bird of the,
existing organism.
or better way to say, parent organism. Right
Okay,
now,
sir.
that is one thing. Further, the new organism can separate from the parent and start to grow independently. And budding is observed in some organisms like yeast. It is observed in some other organisms, some animal like creature like hydra also. So that is the complete thing about budding. Okay. Next was, he explained fragmentation.
Fragmentation is a mode of asexual reproduction. It happens in Spirogyra.
Spirogyra.
Yeah,
Gyra.
Spirogyra. Um,
Continue.
mm,
It's basically a mode of asexual reproduction, a type of asexual reproduction in which an organism will be breaking or splitting into different fragments, and each fragment will continue.
each fragment will multiply.
It will multiply and develop into a new organism. Right now,
Yes.
so it's a process where an organism, it's an asexual type of reproduction in which an organism splits into different fragments, and each fragment develops into new individual organism. Okay, that is one thing. Acha, I have one question to all of you. In the case of fragmentation, the new organism, will it be identical to the parent organism? Like this is the parent organism, and these are the new organism. So will they be identical to the parent organism, or will they be genetically different? Tell me.
So they'll be identical.
Identical, no? In fact, whenever asexual reproduction takes place, whether it be via spore formation, whether it be fragmentation or budding or whatever kind of asexual mode of reproduction we have learned in the chapter. In that, the new organism is identical to their parent. Okay. Yes, Abu Bakr, spore formation. Yes, you're waiting for your answer. Yes. Meanwhile, Pinka, you answers the questions which you haven't yet answered it yet. Answer this one, Priyanka. Name the organ of plant body which help in sexual reproduction. Yes, I guess I'm audible. Yes, am I audible to everyone or not?
So you are audible.
Priyanka, answer the question now. Name the organ of plant body which help in sexual reproduction. It's simply the flower now. And inside the flower, you have the stamen and the pistil. Okay, na? Stamen and pistil respectively. For spore formation, any one of you can answer. Abu Bakr is. We were required to answer this, by the way. Okay, Gauss, you define spore formation.
So like it is a mode of sexual reproduction.
Hmm. In which
It, in which this like the cells float in the air and they burst. Or something.
okay. So basically, in the case of spore formation, what happens? It's a type of asexual reproduction in which organism would be producing reproductive cells called as spores. Organism would be producing the reproductive cells called as spores, and from those spores, new organisms will develop. New organism will grow from that. So wherever that spore will be lying when the sporangium burst open, so wherever the spore is going to fall on from, and there it will start to grow. That is the case of spore formation. Hope this much should be clear. Okay. Now I have few extra questions for you guys. We have few minutes left. In this, first of all, you guys tell me, have all of you understood the different concepts in this chapter?
Yes, sir.
Priyanka, what about you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Answer first question to me. That the seeds of the drumstick and the maple, they will be carried to the long distance by wind because they possess seeds of the drumstick, seeds of the maple seed, and the arc here. They will be able to carry to the long distance by the help of the wind because they possess. Do they have winged seeds?
Yes, sir. Winged seeds.
Yes,
Huh?
sir.
Right now, or do they have spiny seeds? So they have winged seeds. Okay, no? Okay, do tell me the eye of the potato that you see. You see the eye of the potato plant. What is it? See that this is called as the eye.
Yes,
What
sir.
is it? Is it the root? Is it the bud? Or is it the like? How can we say that this like? Let me write the question actually. The question is the eye of the potato plant is, look at the options carefully. What the root is to any plant? What the root is to any plant? Or look at the next option. Say that it is the bird, like the bird is to a flower. Or we can say that it is the anther is to a stamen. The anther is to stamen, or is it that it is the bird is to a bryophyllum leaf? The bird is to a. You guys are able to understand the question? Tell me this thing first. How the question has been framed here?
Sir, I don't understand the D option.
D option. It's the bird is to a bryophyllum leaf. When you look at the bryophyllum leaf, they are tiny adventitious. They are tiny birds that develops on the margin of the leaf like this now. Remember the bryophyllum leaf?
Yeah, yes.
So is the eye of the potato similar to how the root of a plant is? Or is it similar to what the bird is to a flower? Can we relate the eye of the potato to the root of a plant? Can we relate the two? The root of the plant, what is its function? To absorb the water from the ground, no? To absorb water
Yes, sir.
and mineral and anchor the plant. So we cannot match it with this. Getting it? The bird is to a flower. The bird of a flower, like basically the flowering bird that you see. The bird eventually develops into the flower, no? So is there any relation, any comparison? Can we relate the two?
Yes, sir.
No, how can we relate it? The eye of the potato